Hey, welcome everybody. Give it just a couple moments to make your way into the webinar. While we're doing that, if you want to, right about here somewhere, there should be a little button on your Zoom profile at the bottom. You can click to open up the chat. If you want to open that up, change it from host and panelists over to everyone. And then share out who you are, where you're from. That way we can know who everyone is, kind of introduce yourself to each other. And we'll get started here in just a moment. I'll also encourage everyone that as we're doing the webinar, if you are interested in asking questions, we certainly appreciate those, and you can do that by typing those questions into the chat, and I'll be monitoring that as our presenter is presenting today, and I'll try to get her to answer any of the questions that come through. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. Uh, this is peer-to-peer reflections is the name of this webinar. We've got Dawn Esser. I should have confirmed that. I thought it was Esser. With us today from the Iowa Community College Consortium, online consortium. Actually, you're at specifically uh,
Southwestern Community College.
Southwestern Iowa Community College. And so she's going to be presenting today. My name is David Green. I am the partner engagement manager here at Harmonize, and we're the ones hosting today's webinar. We also, this is a cross promotion with our partners at USDLA, the U.S. Distance Learning Association. So we want to thank them as well for their support in promoting this webinar today. Uh, just a couple of quick bits of information. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Um, uh, for this webinar series that we're doing, I've created a Padlet, and I'm going to share that link out for everyone if you want to open that up. And this actually has lots of great resources on it. All of our past and future webinars, I've kind of already started putting together all of the resources in here, so you can check that out. The first column here, this is just for like harmonized resources, especially if you're a current client and you already use Harmonize, you can get support and training requests and things like that here. But that second column is all the resources that Dawn has shared ahead of time. And I put that in here so that you can steal that away and reuse it. I love what Dawn said to me the other day. She said, "Yep, I've stolen this from everybody else. So it's only fair to share it out more." And that's what our community is all about, just sharing different resources that we find and ideas and just taking that and making it our own. Which is kind of part of what this webinar series is about. It's just sharing out different ways that instructors have found success in their classroom. Usually they are harmonized users, so there's some harmonized in there as well, but overall there's a lot of different aspects to this um, presentation today that doesn't have anything to do with harmonized, which I love. I'm going to pass it over to Dawn, let her introduce herself real quick. So, Dawn, if you want to just give us a little background about who you are and anything like that.
So my name is Dawn Esser. I teach at Southwestern Community College in Iowa. We are a small rural community college of about a little over 1,600 students, and that's a mix of online and current concurrent enrollment students and traditional students and some non-traditional students as well. I primarily have been teaching speech for the last 25 years, both as an adjunct and full-time instructor. I have also taught a little bit of education because my background is both in communication and education. So, but primarily I do a lot of public speaking and fundamentals of oral communication. Those are the two classes that I get to teach over and over again. I love teaching them. I actually, for a long time, only taught face to face. Our distance learning people actually initially, when we started doing things online, they actually recommended students do everything online but take speech face to face, which I didn't mind at the time. After the pandemic, I thought I probably need to learn this skill. And so I tried it in 2023. It was okay. I learned about Harmonize at the very end of that first time teaching. and then taught again using Harmonize and really enjoyed it. It helped me create things in the online class that I was doing in my face-to-face classes that were really effective and really worked and created a lot of interaction. As you can imagine, in a speech class, I work a lot to get my students talking and doing a variety of conversations, speeches, presentations, that sort of thing. So this is actually just my fourth semester of teaching online, and I am excited about all the things that I'm going to share today.
That's awesome. I would not have guessed it's only 4 years that you've been teaching online. You've got some really amazing um, concepts and implementation of those concepts that you're really delivering some really amazing outcomes in your classes. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know exactly what the students are learning from an outcome basis, but I mean, just looking at it, I was very impressed. I think really the thing that really drew me in when I met with you the very first time was that you really were going to try to recreate what you were doing in the classroom. And I've often said I feel like that's something that is almost missing sometimes in
Mm.
online learning, that you're sometimes we try to do something so innovative and so out of the box that we forget, a lot of times just go back to those traditional time tested true methods that we do in the classroom. We just got to find a new way to do it in an online setting. And I think you have figured that out in multiple different ways of how to do that very quickly, apparently. So I'm going to turn this back over to you, and I'm going to share this slideshow that you've presented here. And we'll walk through this, and I'll ask some questions, and we can go through it. And please, everyone who's in the audience, if you got any questions, please ask them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get those as well. So I'll pass it back over to you, Don.
Thank you. Yes, please ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. So, one of the things that I wanted to create online, and one of the things that I heard, because for a long time I've been listening to students talk about their online classes, some positively, some not so positively. And one of the things I wanted to create was some really great interaction, like I have in my classroom. One of my favorite activities is doing this one pager activity. And if you have anything in any of your classes that requires students to read something, an article, a textbook chapter, anything, it actually works with anything, even though it was traditionally started as an ELA assignment for English teachers, you actually can use it with any kind of information, written information you want students to actually discuss and digest and talk about with each other. So let me tell you how I did it face to face, and then we'll talk about how I transferred that over to my online class. Face to face, students were given a template, and that is one of the resources that he put in the Padlet. You can just do a blank piece of paper, but it's really, really hard for students to start with that because we are going to ask them to do a little bit of drawing. So a template that has different boxes, there are multiples of them, and you could just give people a blank piece of paper. The one on screen is the one that I use most frequently because it chunks it down into smaller pieces, and I find my students have an easier time with that. So I actually in class assigned them an article about how to deal with strategies of how to deal with public speaking, anxiety, and apprehension. I can assign that information and they absolutely don't read it. And you think they would, some of them do, but they don't really like think about, oh, what can I use out of this? So I would assign everybody different articles because there's a ton of strategies for dealing with anxiety and apprehension when it comes to public speaking. I'd assign everybody a different article, and then in those spaces, they would tell me like, what does that anxiety look like for you? Like, what are your symptoms? What does it look like for you? And oh, by the way, you got to do some kind of little drawing in that space too. And then they would move over to the next box and they would tell me three strategies they read in their article about what they could do before they actually gave the speech. In another box, three things they could do while they're actually giving the speech to cope. And then I also have them pick out a really great quotation that they want to remember about dealing with anxiety. And then in that middle there, they also have to give me a mantra that they can say to themselves. all of the boxes have to have some kind of visual with it. And I have created a very simple one that I show them. I tell them that stick people are great works of art, in my opinion. So it doesn't have to be fancy. All it has to be is a way for us to remember and communicate the information. So they create this, and then in class, we do kind of, I think it's sometimes referred to as a speed dating drill, or I call it a double line drill. I get everybody up on their feet, they grab their one pager, we make two lines. They very quickly tell the person across from them what they have on their one pager. The person on the other side tells them what they have. And then I move one row, and they just keep doing that over and over again until they've talked to probably 7 or 8 of their classmates. So whole lot of great things come from this. I have them watch for things that get repeated over and over again, strategies and ideas, and also things that they thought were unique that they didn't ever think about, or that they have questions about. And then we have a full class discussion about it. It gets them talking about the anxiety, which, by the way, for most students will lower that anxiety. It gets them thinking about all the different things that they can do before their first speech. And it just provides for a great conversation. And they enjoy it. They have a lot of fun with it. I really wanted to recreate this in my online class. And Harmonize has the ability to do that. In my online class, I actually use the peer review function. You could use it in discussion too. I go ahead and let the students, again, I give them articles to read, and then they can go ahead and do it old school. I say, grab a piece of paper, do it like mine if you want to. And I have students take me up on that because they don't get to do that very often anymore. They don't get to hold a piece of paper and pencil. However, if they don't want to, because I also have some students that love Canva, which you can see on screen. This is one of the students that I just had this semester and what he created for his speech anxiety plan. And then they share their screen, whether that is they take a photo of the one they handed or they share their Canvas screen, and they just talk through their plan for their classmates. Then their classmates come in and they actually talk about the couple of things that they're going to take away from the one they just watched, and then they give that person a suggestion. And so it creates, as close as I can get it, this conversation back and forth about what are the strategies, what are we going to be able to do to help each other conquer this anxiety, apprehension, which, by the way, I always share with them, like, that's going to come back somewhere along the line. Even if you don't plan on public speaking, you're going to do a job interview, or you're going to have, you know, a bridesmaid toast or something like that. So it has been, last semester when I asked students kind of my informal, you know, what did you like, what did you didn't like, they actually said this was one of their favorite things. They really enjoyed doing it. It helped them. It created some good interaction. And I will actually then have them, after their first speech, and my students just did this, after their first speech, they go back and they review their plan, what their classmates said. And it was really good. One of the things that I thought was particularly good, because they had to comment on each other, and students were correcting other students. I didn't have to do it. So, like, I had a student that said, well, I'm going to take a full script of what I want to say up there because it'll be like a little security blanket. And both of the peers commenting said, well, wait a minute, that's not going to be very effective. Why don't you try this? Or why don't you think about it like this? And I just thought that was awesome, because I all I had to do is say, yep, I agree with your classmates. And so I got a lot of good thinking, a good discussion. And I will say the only thing is, if you use peer review and they're not actually critiquing each other, you might frame it for them as peer response, because it wasn't actually a discussion. But I liked actually them having assigned people. Sometimes they
Yeah.
get kind of lazy sometimes in discussion, I feel like. And so I liked using the peer review as peer response. And I've enjoyed doing this. You can use it with just about anything. I've used it in education classes, not online, but you could certainly do it online, where I've had them do something more complicated. In my intro to ed class, I actually had them take a teaching strategy like think, pair, share, or problem-based learning or something like that. And then they would create a one page or over like the text information. They would share that out. And then the response from their classmates would be about when they've seen it or how they might use it in their future classroom. So it's them teaching each other, but the total focus isn't on them because using screen sharing. And even in the classroom, they've got this thing that somebody can look at. So I just like it for all those reasons. Anybody else have something like that you maybe assign in writing that this might work for, or any ideas?
Yeah, let us know in the chat if anybody else is doing anything like this and how you're doing it. Love to hear some responses there. One thing that stuck out to me, and I think this is really not to pat Harmonize on the back too much. I mean, we are the host. But I love hearing all the different examples of how peer review is being used. And I think it is peer review, but you're right. People are not using it in what I think most people traditionally think of peer review, because I think traditionally we think either English composition classes are doing peer review,
Mm-hmm.
or you're in a master's or doctorate program and you're doing like peer review of other people's papers and you're given like your and the reality is, it's the practice of having the students give feedback to each other on their work. And that can be done in any class. My favorite example that I've heard recently is we have a school that is a community college, and their auto mechanics class is using peer review. And so they're having the students video themselves working on the cars, and then they're
Oh.
giving each other responses back and forth. Ah, you shouldn't have done that. You should have removed that first. Or I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know exactly what they would be saying. But this idea that you can take this outside of the English class. A peer review can be done in a lot of different ways. And probably the best part is you're letting the students do all the hard work. Like,
Mhm.
to give feedback to 30, 40, 50 students, whatever's in your class or more, that takes a lot of time from an instructor. But if you tell all the students you're going to give feedback to each other, now you just have to go through and go, yep, I agree. Like, that is the easy
Mhm.
part, right? Do you find that it saves you a lot of time when you do like a peer review compared to an assignment, just typical assignment?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I will say too, like the other thing is that I don't get AI generated responses, right? They may have used AI for an idea for maybe an image or something, but like as I was looking at all the assignments, they didn't use AI for this. They went ahead and thought about it themselves, and they didn't use AI because I made them videotape their responses to their peers. They didn't get to
Yep.
type them out. They videotaped those. Like there's that. No, I mean, I could tell they had jotted themselves some notes, but for the most part, they were talking and really engaging with the content. So yeah, no, this is an assignment. Like it's fun to go through. And I will tell you, I cheat. I speed the student screen share up. I use the two times because they're thinking and stuff, and I don't need to think with them. I just need to go through that. I always have the closed captioning on as well so that I can move through them because I do like, and this is just my own personal opinion, I do want to look at all the assignments. I do
Yeah.
want to make sure that I know what that content was. But then in terms of responding, yeah, a lot of times I'm like, this is great, or yeah, you guys are totally on track. If somebody really hasn't got some good strategies or something, I might put in a question or two.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, yeah, the students do a great job and they give each other good feedback and then they feel more empowered in the class.
Yeah. I think another note that I'd point out, and I saw this the first time we were discussing this. Now, you're in a different situation. You're in a communications course. Students are going to have to film themselves if they're online course, or they're going to have to get up in front of the class and speak. That's what a communications course is going to be, your speech course.
Mhm.
Um, but in general, if you took this outside of that type of course, the way you have this design is very much in that universal design of learning aspect where it's giving the students multiple options of how they can present themselves. Yes, they're going to have to give the speech, but hey, you can upload an image, or if you would rather, talk through instead of screen share, you're giving them different ways, which is a very UDL type of mindset. Is that something you did on purpose, or was it just kind of like, hey, I'm just going to do this for my students because make it easier on me. I don't know. Either way is probably acceptable, but was there some design element into giving them so many options?
Yeah, I just generally like options in my classroom, period. I just like to give students a variety of ways, as long as we're all hitting the same objective, standard, et cetera. I just like giving them some options. I always have some non-negotiables, but I feel like the more options I give students, the better work I give. So yeah, and especially I think online too, like I have students that are out in rural Iowa. And so
Hmm.
to have some flexibility with how we use the technology and those kind of things is sometimes very helpful for them. I had somebody reach out, not this semester, but last semester. She's like, I could not get my little face icon on my screen share. She said, but you can hear me. Is that okay? I'm like, of course that's okay. I don't have to see you. I already know your voice because you've been talking in my class. So no, that's fine.
That so now so you're doing this as kind of like the prep work, right? So you're doing this early in the semester. The
Mm-hmm,
students are coming in, they're doing the one pager, they're learning about anxiety, they're learning about how to present themselves in a speech environment.
mm-hmm.
But they, you got to take it a step further. You got to get them prepped for that actual speech. And so, what are you doing around like helping them in an online setting be able to actually get ready for that first time they're presenting a full speech?
Yeah. So we do a lot of practice, a lot of different things. One of the tools that I found as I was digging into AI at the same time that I was working on learning how to teach online was this tool called Yoodli. And it's a super cool AI tool. And I have yet to have any students that have used it before. So at some point, I may run into issues with this, but it's pretty cool. So Udly says that they're kind of what they do for speaking, what Grammarly did for writing. And so it is basically an AI communication coach. And you can try Udly for free 5 different times, 5 different speeches, or they also do interviews, they do some role plays and things like that. But 5 different times, you don't have to put in a credit card or anything like that. I've had high school students do it, so it's very accessible. And so in this next speech, they'll go out and they will give their speech to Udly. They'll have to log into the website. They will have to sign up with just an email and a password. And then they'll give their speech to Udly. And then Udly will come back with the most comprehensive information, uh, like professional level kind of not only coaching but analytics. And not all of it's flawless, like it's still a robot doing this, but analytics, they'll tell them how many words per minute did they talk, what word did they use most frequently when they started sentences, how many times did they say how many times did they say well. And it will also, in the beginning, tell them their strength. Like it's good general feedback as well. It will give them information about how they're coming across. And I did find it was really interesting with the students, like that kind of general, they just give them like 3 or 4 adjectives of how they're coming across. Like mine was friendly and energetic and something else. They're very varied. Like I'm not sure what the algorithm on that was, but it was
Hmm.
really interesting. And the students found that, I think, really helpful to kind of see how they were coming across and whether or not they wanted to change that or whether or not they were happy with that. It gives them a full transcript. It gives them follow-up questions people might ask. Like it's just very, very thorough in what it does. So in my online course, what I have them do is they go out, they do the video, they get all the coaching back. Then they can either, again, I give them options. They can screenshot all the coaching, which involves quite a few screenshots, but I'm fine with that. My preference is that they screen share. But again, if screenshotting works better for them, I allow that. But they screen share what Udly gives them and they just walk through and they talk to me about, oh wow, I didn't know this, wow, I said that many times, or oh, this is really good. And I also encourage them, I like, not everything is going to be great here, so feel free to tell me something didn't work or you didn't agree with it. trying to get them to use AI really thoughtfully. Like there are some really great uses for AI, but it doesn't mean everything the AI gives us is, yeah, accurate, good, what we
Hmm.
want. So they do that, and it's a really good assignment too. Like it's this really, again, low prep on my part way for them to practice and get some feedback, and not feedback from a person, but from AI, which sometimes I think is a little less threatening, right? They feel a little less
Hmm.
judged by the robot than they do other students. And we work on that. We work on feedback, and I work very hard to create a positive environment. But honestly, it really does a great job of giving them a lot of things to think about and just a lot of content to go through. I encourage them to look through their text of their speech and see, was that what you meant to say? Is that how you meant to say it? That sort of thing. So it's a really good reflective assignment. And then we do some other things with AI in the class as well. But I really like using the screen sharing tool, but screenshots will work too. And I do have them talk through it, and then they do reflect at the end about how they felt about it and that sort of thing. So it's really good. I think I've got a slide there about the positives and the negatives. Yeah, those are all the different things
Yeah.
that it can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is I love this tool. And it actually reminds me, we have a similar tool in Harmonize, which is called the AI Coach, but it's just for written text.
Mhm.
Um, and so this is really cool that it does it for the videos.
Yeah.
Um, I can't help but think this probably also saves you an incredible amount of time, because not only are you not having to sit down with each student and giving a full analysis, which you probably couldn't even do this yourself, right? Like the
No.
way it gives this feedback. But if you're having them share this as well, and so you could just say, "Oh no, I actually didn't agree with that." You could even say that yourself. I know you're asking the students to, but you could even step in and say, "Well, you know what? It said that you were, uh, you know, uh, consider starting with a compelling hook. You know what? I think you started great." Or,
Mhm.
you can give your own feedback where you notice it, and you're not having to kind of sift through all of the analytics. Um, and you're letting the robot do that. And one of my favorite, sorry, this is me going sideways,
Yeah, you're
but
fine.
I love the quote that I heard from another presenter that we have working with us. And he said, "I want to let the robots do the robot work and let the humans do the human work." And
Mhm.
I think that's so. Well, there's no reason to have you count how many times a student says, "Well." Let a robot do that.
Mhm.
Let you as the human give the better, more, compelling feedback that really matters. They still need to know how many times they said well, but that's something the robot can do. Let you do those, more in-depth analysis of, hey, you really got this idea great, or you kind of lost track at the end. That's where you want to focus your time. And do you see it the same way?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like this is just, and it's a great way. Like the second speech, I bump them up. Like the first speech is all about just getting them comfortable, like getting
Hmm.
out some of the nerves and things. So the second speech for my high school students, it's a big jump up because I make them take a communication topic like self-disclosure or yeah, communication climate, those kind of things. And then they have to give a speech on that. And that's a big jump because again, primarily I have high school students online, and that's a huge jump for them. So I think it is reassuring to them to kind of walk through that. Also, too, like I'm assigning this in my face-to-face classes just to get them to practice. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things, like sometimes they think they'll be okay, or sometimes they put it off because of the nerves and stuff. And this is a low key easy way without me having to spend a ton of time on it to get some practice in, and for them also to kind of see some really good feedback modeled too, like some things that they could comment
Mm.
on for other students as well. So yeah, this is so easy to incorporate and use, and I love it. I am teaching an employment communication class for the first time this semester, and I'm anxious to get back on Yoodli and see how well it does with the interviews, because it'll do an interview for you too, which ChatGPT will as well, but not like the speaking part, right? You can only
Right.
do that in text based. So I'm anxious to see. I'm guessing that it's going to be just as good with that, and I'm looking forward to having students use it for that as well. And
That's neat.
again, if you want better student presentations, which I think everybody does, if you want students to have some practice and have some feedback and really work on it, this is a great low key assignment to make them get better before they actually present in your class.
Well, I think there's, I hear this constantly in my role. Like students are just using AI way too much. They're depending on AI all the time. It's just a constant battle between the instructors and the students. And the reality that I tell instructors is, listen, there's no way you can stop this 100%. Like it's just not going to happen. You got to come up with strategies where it's either motivating the students to the point they don't want to use AI, you're supporting them to the point that they don't feel like they need AI to get the support. Um, and then also you just get enough friction in there that yeah, I could probably somebody in this world could make a video of me giving a speech and it looked good, but I can't do that. Like,
No.
I'll if I ask Chat GPT to make a video of me giving a speech, all of a sudden I'm gonna have a hand growing out of the side of my face in the middle of the video.
Yeah.
And so like there's the reality that, this is helping with kind of curbing that AI use by being more creative, but also just kind of giving them the space also to use AI.
Mhm.
What would you say to somebody who said, "Okay, Dawn, this is great, but if someone did use AI, I'm sure you would probably penalize them, but then you're using AI to help in design this class." Like, how would you how would you respond if somebody said, "Oh, you're being a hypocrite. You're saying to your students, don't use AI, but then here you are, you're actually using AI, you know."
Yeah, well, I guess my take on AI is that I am not the AI police. And I am not, that is not my job. My job is to help my students think and grow and discern, right? And so we just talk about, here's why you should use it in these kind of ways because it's a great tool. I had somebody today in one of my classes say, "Hey, can I put some information in AI and have them graph it for me?" I'm like, of course. My class is not about you graphing things.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely have AI do that. That's a great use for AI. Uh, so I'm old enough. I've been doing this long enough. Like I remember when Google first came out, right? Everybody's like, "Don't use Google." Well, now we all use Google,
Yeah.
right? It's not going away. I do spend some time though upfront before we use this tool or any other tools. We do talk about. I give them a bunch of articles to look at, and we talk about all the things, the environmental impact, the bias, all the things, so that
Yes.
because I want them to use the tools informed. So yeah. But I also make a point of telling them that I'm still better than Yoodli.
Yeah.
And my feedback is always going to be more personal and always going to be better. And so I really encourage them to reach out to me too if they're struggling with something that people are still a really great resource. It's a balance, and I want to help myself. Like I'm still figuring out that balance too, but I want to help students really start negotiating that balance. When do we use AI? What are good purposes for that? And when do we not? Like when is it too much work? When is it just like just more human, more interactive to actually do the the old school way?
So, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. I'm just really curious. Like,
Mhm.
where would you draw that line for your class? Like, when you're like the student who said, "Can I use AI to graph?" I'm sure if a student said, "Can I use the AI to gather my outline for my speech?" Would that be no? I still want you to create your own. Would that be okay? Like, where would you draw that line at of where you think AI use would be acceptable, and when does it cross that line? I guess.
So when I grade anything that students put in, I always have some elements that talk about the fact that the work is personal it's unique, it's interactive. And so I'm really looking for effectiveness. And AI really struggles to be personal, to be unique, and to actually, like it can't incorporate students' experiences. It can't incorporate students' language. So if I get something in that's been cut and paste from AI, I just roll back. In fact, I had one the other day, and I'm not 100% certain that it was, but I just said, "Hey, come talk to me about this," and we just have a conversation. And I point out the things like she had narrative transformation in an analysis. I'm like, what's narrative transformation? And of course, yeah. And so we had a conversation. Like, I'm not going to be the AI police. I
Right.
am going to help students, and I try and encourage them, especially in a speech class. And like, there are some good tools, there are some good things, brainstorming. And I try and in my class, I'm like, start creating some rules for yourself because those rules are going to make you more productive, right? If I
Mm,
know if I can do something faster than AI can do it, then I don't use AI, right?
yeah.
Um, because I don't want to waste the environmental impact.
Yeah.
So, but I'm teaching a class I've never taught before, like legitimately. Like I try to be very specific. I look up some very careful things, but it has created some stuff for me because like I ran out of time and it could do it
Yeah.
faster than I could do it.
I always I already told you this. I should say this to the audience as well. I have an 18-year-old son who just went to college. He's a freshman at East Carolina, and it being in this industry the way I am, um, the advice I gave him was don't let the AI replace your critical thinking.
Yeah,
As long as you are doing that critical thinking part, then you're good. Because otherwise, I'm paying you to go to school to learn how to be critical thinking, and I'm not getting my money's worth really.
yeah,
But that's where I tell him, like, if all of a sudden you're asking the AI to do the thinking for you instead of the work for you, yeah. So I think we're kind of in alignment there in our thinking. Like, if it's easier for you to do it, then you do it. If it's just mechanical work, yeah, let go ahead and use AI.
yeah.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
Last semester, I had students create attention getters, hooks for their speeches, and I'll do it this semester too. We just haven't done it yet. And they have to create, I call it uh, two humans and AI after two truths and a lie. And
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
they create two hooks from AI, or two hooks, yeah, two hooks from AI and one, or actually it's the other way around. One hook from AI and two that they actually create based on their own experience, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then they actually give their classmates in a video, they give them all three hooks that they've created, which by the way is great thinking. Like, how are the different ways that I can start this speech? But one of them can be from AI, but they don't tell their classmates which one is AI, and then students go in and comment and try and guess which one is AI, which one do they like the best. And it was super interesting because the other semester, I had 20 students, and 12 of them, after they did the whole assignment and students comment on it, 12 of them went with their original idea. They did not go with AI. I had, I think, five or six that hybrided. Like there was something in the AI that they liked, so they put that on top of what
Hmm.
they created.
Right.
And I had two or three, they're like, you know what? I just didn't know a lot about this topic, and AI just did a better job, so I'm going to use AI.
Right.
So, and that was a lot of fun. Again, it gets them thinking, and I make them justify what they chose and why they chose it. So, yeah, we do
I
that.
love that two truths and a lie
Yeah.
variation on that. That's so fun. And I think this also speaks to like you're not making it a taboo subject, right? Like
No.
you're giving them Yoodli to use, which is AI based. You're asking them go use ChatGPT. You're talking, you're open about it. It's not like this secret
No.
thing that they're almost scared to even mention the words, AI or
No.
ChatGPT. You're open about it. So it makes, I'm sure that conversation you had with that student that you suspected some AI usage probably went over a lot better because she
Oh,
knew, you were, hey, I probably took way too much advantage here, right?
Yeah. And she had a legitimate, like we had a good conversation and she's redoing the assignment, so it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm wondering, I don't know if you survey. I know you mentioned you do some surveys, but I don't know if you like track the surveys or anything. But like, what is those general reflections you're getting back from the students in your course where you're doing these different assignments you've been talking about?
Yeah, I will say the things where they're interactive and doing like the Yoodli, the one pager, the discussion stuff, they always ask for more of that. Like I'm always trying to figure out how we can do, I'm always trying to figure out how I can take stuff in my class and put it in and create more interaction. So for the most part, it's there are things that they enjoy doing, and there are things that they feel like are valuable use of their time. And I have again high school students, and most of them are, I will say, overscheduled. So I really like giving them things that are useful that they like. I don't want people to hate my class. I want
Right.
people to enjoy my class. I want them to learn and I want them to stretch, but I also want them to have some fun. Thus, also over spring break, the extra credit will be get on video and tell us a dad joke, which we have a lot of fun with. And I'm I want to create some more of those kind of short things because we do that in my face-to-face class, right? We talk about the Olympics. We do all these other
Yeah.
things. And I want more of that in my online class, not to give them too many things to do, so you have to be real selective, but I want more of that community. And like legitimately this semester, especially, I feel like I know those students so much better at week, I think we're at week 6, so much better than I did the first time at this.
I well, I think sometimes it gets lost. I remember when I was in college, like a lot of students, or at least this is the way I feel. I shouldn't say a lot of students. The way I felt was a lot of the general ed classes that I was taking, it was almost like
Mm,
I'm never going to use why do I have to take this class? Why does this have to be a requirement? And I'm sure from your perspective, you get a lot of that feeling when students come in, and probably
mm.
especially if they have to speak in front of people. That probably is very
There's a little bit of that.
yeah. But like you said earlier, it's such an important part of life, whether it's a roast at a wedding or a job interview, or you get hired by some ed tech company and now you're being asked to do webinars all of a sudden. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to present and talk in public, um,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, just about any career. And so, you know, you're taking students that are probably coming in going, I'm just taking this because I have to, but you're hoping they walk away with some great tools. And so you want to bridge that gap some. And I think this is probably, a really great way to do that because you're giving them a fun way to actually learn.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I really do. My goal is before I wrap up my career that I get back all my student surveys saying, I really enjoyed this class. I want them to learn too, but geez, I want them to have some fun along the way and enjoy as well. It's a 101 class. Like we're not doing quantum physics here. So I want them to enjoy, and I want them, my face-to-face students, like almost always, I ask them for their big takeaway. And it's almost always, I got to know people. I became a little bit more talkative with other people because of this class. Like that's very that makes me happy, makes my heart happy.
I mean, sometimes that's what especially with I call it the generation AIZ because that's what they become. Uh, um, with this
Yep.
generation or TikTok or Instagram generation, whatever you want to call them, I mean, they really have a hard time
Mm,
communicating. They really do. I know
yeah.
this is more specific into your course of communications, but like, man, my son struggled there between about the ages of 15 and just probably 6 months ago.
Hmm.
Ordering food at the fast food restaurant. Like he would
Yeah.
get so nervous. Just Only thing you gotta do is tell them it's a Big Mac meal. That's all, and just tell them you want to Coke with that. Like, but they get
Yeah.
really nervous and really, anxious when they're put in that situation. I'm sure COVID had a ton to do with that.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's
but
a
yeah,
skill.
yeah.
They can learn how to do it. And the more they do it, and the more they do it in other classes too, besides public speaking, the better off they are. I just had a colleague talk about something they did, and they interacted with each other, and they said, "Are you going to time us?" Because she timed us in speech class. She's like, "No, I'm not going to time you."
Well, I will say that's another thing. We get a lot of pushback I hear where I'll get instructors say, "Hey, we want to use Harmonize." And there's all these video components, and you're saying, "Hey, this is a great way to deter AI usage." And but what if students just say straight up, "I don't want to put myself on video. I don't like that." Like, I guess maybe take this in your education course. How would you, what would you do with that student who said, "I just don't want to be on camera"? Like,
Yeah, so I would baby step them just like I do. Occasionally I get somebody that like for real, trauma in the background, all kinds of things, like they're terrified. And so I baby set them out. I'm like, okay, so you're instead of giving your first speech to your class right away, you're going to come in and you're going to do it for a selected group of adults. And we're going to work through this. So I guess online, I would do the same thing. I'm like, okay, don't want to be on camera. Let's do a screen share and let's hear your audio, right? So you don't have to worry about that. Or I would, create the Zoom call with them, like you baby step them out, and I try to in classes anyway. That's one of the things I'll go back and really edit this class for is making sure that I'm baby stepping them up. Even though it is a public speaking class, like I try to kind of bit by bit get them more and more comfortable. It's one of the best things you can do. And sometimes it's the grade. So sometimes if I can create these very low stakes things like that introduction thing where they create the hooks, like that's very low stakes. You do it and you comment on it and you earn the points, right?
right.
And so a lot of low stakes things, a lot of kind of baby stepping it up. I do have kind of an advantage. The high schools are pretty good about not putting anybody in my class that's terrified online. They try to encourage them to take it face to face. It is, I will say at this point, it is easier to do that kind of face to face, but we could still walk back and say, okay, let's do a Zoom call. Let's talk about strategies and kind of inch them into it.
Yeah, well, and I think you also hit on like in Harmonized, you could do audio recording or screen share. So if they really have a problem like showing their face, maybe there's trauma around them,
Mm-hmm.
visually being on camera, that can be a workaround. But yeah, in general, taking a communications course, you kind of know that. That was kind of also the reason I asked, like in your education course, like they're not walking in expecting that to have to be given, you know, presentations maybe, but maybe they are like maybe you are going to have presentations as part of your course. And that's important. You need to have the ability to present things for a lot of different careers, but also a lot of different classes. And hey, even your relationships, you better, um, speaking as a married man, you
Yeah.
better be ready to be able to state your case and make a good point and lay out the pros and cons. And so, just everywhere that type of
Yeah.
learning can be beneficial.
Yeah, they need to interact with each other. I even more now because we do have AI.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to conversate, have conversational skills, and that there's no like they don't need a magic recipe for that. They just need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is great because you're forcing that practice in the Yoodli. I love that. I'll tell you that tool is really impressive. I love that.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Dawn. I've learned so much, even more in
yeah,
the full presentation. I know I kind of knew some of this stuff beforehand, but I always learn new stuff. I love it. Um,
me too.
I I want to open it. We got like 10 more minutes before the end of the webinar, but if anybody has any questions, if you want to put
Yeah,
anything out there, we'll be glad to answer that. If not, thank you so much for presenting. This is going to be. I honestly think this is one of my. I say this every time. I shouldn't say it, but yeah. I mean, it's like every new one is now. Oh, this is my favorite now. But I
yeah,
always learn something new, and I'm ready to go out and like share it to the world. So, This is now my new favorite, which I'll have another one next week, so don't get too big of a head. But yeah, that's,
I
for the
understand. I feel
next
that way
week,
about speeches.
yeah,
Oh, this is the best, like when my students do stuff. Yeah, I
yeah,
totally understand that.
you get 1 week on top, and then you'll get knocked off because the next one come up.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for this, and we'll see if any questions got through. Otherwise, thank you everyone for participating. Thank you again for USDLA for helping promote this, um, and to ICCO. What? Wow. Um, ICCOC, right? Am I
Yes,
saying that right? Gosh, I
you
just
got it.
for letting you come in today. And you have to tell Kelly hey for me because
I
I,
will.
I did a webinar with her I think 2 years ago, and our instructional designer. I don't know if I told you this the other day. She's coming up for the conference, the
Oh,
ICCOC
good.
conference. So she'll be there. So you'll have a harmonized person there at the conference. So.
Perfect.
So yeah,
Yeah.
any Iowa people will be at that Iowa conference. I'm also going to the ITC conference coming up. We've got the
Mm,
Texas DLA conference coming up that we'll be attending, and then we'll start hitting the really busy season in the middle of the summer. So that's when all the conferences start.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't see any questions come through. So thank you so much for not only the presentation, but sharing all the resources and taking the time to do this with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
All right. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.